Everyone, it's time for us to go and take a look at the Samsung Galaxy S22 and see how it holds up in the later part of 2024. Now, the number one thing I can probably tell you is that in my personal opinion, the Samsung Galaxy S22 was a really decent phone when it first came out. It may not be the perfect phone of all time anymore, but it was a really, really good device. And I probably will tell you it's still a really interesting device to go and pick up. Now, for starters, on the exterior and on the outside, as you probably could imagine, it definitely is still a really good looking phone. So you're still maintaining a 6.1-inch dynamic AMOLED display. It's a very good panel, 1080p, 120Hz. The only problem with this phone nowadays, compared to a lot of panels nowadays, is that it's not as bright. It gets about like half as bright as like a Pixel 9. So it's not really like the best looking panel anymore in terms of a brightness perspective, but the panel itself still looks very clean. I enjoy this panel a lot, and there's still a lot of times where I pick up this phone and I'm actually still shocked about how this panel looks from a low light perspective. But if you're going through and trying to, max up the brightness all the time in this phone, you might not be getting like the best type of brightness on this thing. It's not a big deal. USB-C port, kind of flat sides but a little curved. Frosted glass back on the back of this phone, and definitely when I pick up this phone it still feels like a very, very expensive device. It does not feel cheap, still feels like a very premium phone, and I would say in a lot of ways it feels almost like a Galaxy S24. The only thing is that the reflective sides on the S22 and S23 aren't really there anymore, but it still is like a really good feeling phone for the most part, and I generally don't really have too many things to kind of complain about here when it comes down to that perspective. Now, on top of that, another very important thing to keep in mind here too is that with the Samsung Galaxy S22, this is one of those phones that I genuinely do feel like still, I would say from a camera perspective, still holds up well as well. You can do 8K video on the back. You can do a lot of, cool stuff in this type of phone too. And I do think that's a really, really nice thing. And I do think in and of itself, that's a super big thing to kind of think about. On top of those things, I think, when it kind of comes down to these things, the Samsung Galaxy S22 is a really, really interesting phone when it compares to the Galaxy S24. So the S24 is going to last way longer, it's going to have more power, it's going to have a little bit more of everything. And I do think that's a really, really big thing to kind of keep in mind here, that this type of phone is going to be giving you that type of capability. And I would even say from a performance perspective, like this phone does actually give you a pretty decent performing, device. I feel like a phone like this is going to be lasting you a long time, maybe like at least like another 2 years. The performance of this phone is still good when compared to some of the competition. The only issue is that the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 chipset didn't really give you like the best overall performing chipset. There were some issues here and there, but I do think it's still an good enough device and you should still use it when you can. The only thing I can even think about when it comes down to this is like the throttling stuff, but mostly, I'm going to be honest, it's the battery life. The Galaxy S22's battery life really isn't that great. When it first came out, it was alright, but nowadays, it just doesn't make any sense to go ahead, in my personal opinion, and use a phone like this because the battery life can be so abysmal sometimes. I've done so many battery tests against my Galaxy S22 and so many other phones, and I just run into so many battery issues on my phone. Like, you can use it for like a couple of hours and then it dies. And this is just on basic usage. So I think from what I've read, it's like a Galaxy S22 problem. I've had pretty good battery life on my S23, really decent battery life on my S24. It's just this phone that just gives me the weirdest issues. So think about it like that. I'd probably say, like I said before, there's some issues here and there, but I enjoy my Galaxy S22. I like it, but I would recommend buying a Galaxy S23 or a Galaxy S24. So that pretty much covers it up there. If you have any other thoughts or questions, please let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.